Morning, can you hear
Hey,
me?
how are
Hi,
you?
I'm fine. Let's see. Are we okay?
I think we're good. We're perfect. We're live.
Good? Good.
Great. So I'll do a little intro. I'm Justin Fichelson, co-founder and CEO of Avenue 8. And we are fortunate to be joined by Benjamin Dong. Benjamin is a master at mixing traditional furnishings and modern elements, creating interiors that are classic and serene, but never boring. Benjamin and his interior design work have been featured in Home, House Beautiful, Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, California Home and Design, San Francisco Magazine, Wall Street Journal, and NBC. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Justin. Nice to
Can
be
you hear
with
me?
you.
Oh, there you are.
I can.
Likewise. Where are you joining from?
Well, I've got a weekend place up in Acto, shelter in place, lockdown place, and thank God it's really helped.
In Healdsburg. Yeah.
Basically, but my office, basically in a sense, yeah, and it's been inspiring, I have to say. It's strange times, but
That's awesome. Yeah,
strange
so many
times off.
people.
Yeah.
So many people in Sonoma and Napa and Tahoe and all of this. Have you been doing a lot of projects since March?
What's funny is, except for 1 week after the lockdown, we have been busier than we have in several years. I'm really surprised. We're doing projects in New Jersey, in the Cotswolds. So we're busier now than we have been in several years, and it kind of makes sense because people are,
That's so cool.
they're stuck at home. They realize, hey, I might as well fix up the place.
Totally. I think you're exactly right. I think people are sitting in their home and they're like, we should either upgrade or fix our place up and, redesign, if you will. So when you're getting these projects in the Cotswolds, in England or in New York,
Well,
are these
or also,
local
the
clients from the Bay
husband.
Area?
The project outside of Philadelphia is actually a client. We've done several of her houses. She was in Rutherford, outside of St. Helena, and she decided to go back
Very cool.
to Philadelphia. So we scattered out homes for her. Now we're fixing up a house for her, a little renovation and home for her.
That's awesome. And what do you prefer doing? Do you prefer the urban townhouse type thing or the country estate?
No, I like variety. I love challenges. I like working for the wealthy. I like working for the poor. I like working for someone who has a small place, creative. I also like working for people who kind of push me outside of my comfort zone. Some of my most favorite clients have been, or projects, I should say, are clients who maybe asked me to do something that I thought was really maybe not the most tasteful, or it was a way of things, something that I thought was a little too extreme for them. But I figured a way how we could make it work, make them happy, get them what they wanted, but in a way that they didn't expect. That was
And
still
where was that?
elegant, beautiful. That would have been on Broadway in San Francisco.
Very
A
cool.
client
Yeah.
who just wanted bombastic color, not just color, but bombastic color. And I figured a way of sort of introducing it in a way that was still elegant, but made him happy, him and his wife happy.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
it's a challenge. It's a game that we sort of play.
Totally.
You
I will
know.
say, I remember I went into Kimberly's one bedroom that just sold that you did, and that was, what I love is, and then obviously I'm listing Steiner, which is a big house for
Right.
6 million in the city that you did, which is spectacular. But both are equally as amazing. The way you did the one bedroom is so incredible with the different textures and
Sometimes
layers.
when you've got with Corin on Steiner Street, we had fewer limitations, a much more generous budget, sort of allowing us to sort of do a lot more. But with Kimberly, it was a smaller project, more challenges, and we had a budget. And that's also equally fun and challenging and satisfying, to tell you the truth. How do you make
did
a
a great
place?
job.
Thank you.
Very cool. And so with the projects you're doing now, are you seeing obviously I assume home office, home gym, super important, but what are the biggest trends, the longest lasting, impacts it's going to have on design in general?
Well, there's definitely a short-term impact because of COVID. And I will say people are thinking more in terms of cozy, intimacy, family, not large groups of people. We're doing a project on Broadway that before the each that before it was it's connected to become a party pied-à-terre for them. Now it's much
Party
more
house.
smaller gatherings, more intimate. And to be honest, that's very satisfying. That's really nice. The other thing is definitely an emphasis on gardens and creating gardens as a living room space, living room, dining room space. And granted, out here in California, we live that lifestyle anyway, but some people, it's even more reinforced that this is how we're going to entertain perhaps for the next few years.
That makes sense. And so when you take like a small space, for example, how do you like, what is the element of design in the like, what is it that will make that space incredible? Let's say you have a small living room.
Yes.
Like, what are the foundations, like the main things that will transform the room?
I think that a small space, which can be very cozy and intimate, I want to make it feel both open and expansive, and I want to make sure that in all of the corners of the room that we create life, that there's a purpose. So when we arrange the furniture plan, we'll create spaces, seating areas in multiple seating areas, so that the room feels much larger. Sofas will be in one extreme. There might be a little area for a game table or writing desk. I don't want just a traditional furniture plan. We've got a sofa, a coffee table, 2 club chairs. It needs to be dynamic. It should also have some drama, and drama being good drama, being some theatricality, something sort of exciting and interesting about that.
So like, what would be an example of the drama?
Maybe you have one giant accent wall as a mural.
Yeah.
Maybe the ceiling is all wallpaper, and that's your artscape. That's your artscape. Maybe you've got some big sculpture. Maybe you don't have a lot in the space, but maybe you've got a big sculpture on a pedestal in a corner. Also, maybe sometimes using symmetry. I feel like whether you're a modernist or a classicist, a traditionalist, it's good to sort of have symmetry and then sort of break it up in parts. Otherwise, it becomes too boring. You need a little tension in the room.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes when designers are too symmetrical, it becomes a little sterile.
It's a little too safe. It's a little too boring. It's like, okay, that was nice. But you need an edge every now and then, something a little not quite right.
And I like the idea in a smaller room of creating different spaces within that as well. It does makes the space feel much larger.
Exactly. Especially if you're looking across the room and you're seeing past other areas. So I'll maybe put a sofa at a far end. Maybe I might have dueling sofas on opposite ends of a long, narrow room. And they create these wonderful areas. And one area might have a dining table at that sofa, or a tea table at that sofa, so it's kind of eating. And the other area is more just lounge and chill.
Yeah.
Because we have different moods. Sometimes you're in an energy mood, entertaining mood, or just sort of chilling by yourself.
Right, exactly. And I think in the end of the day, it's space that is there for you to use. So if it just looks pretty for an Instagram post or something, that's not really.
No, that's, for me, things have to be functional. They have to be beautiful. They have to fit the emotional need of that client. So when I speak to clients, I usually say, how do you want to feel in this room? Do you want to feel energetic? Do you want to feel alive? Do you want to be just totally motivated? Emotion is very important and when we plan a house for somebody.
Definitely. And where do you select? Because you do a really good job at like mixing modern with old.
I'll shop anywhere, high,
also
low.
New.
New, vintage places. What I like about maybe grabbing a few vintage pieces is it throws the unexpected. Because if you only shop at the design center, all right, it's going to be very sort of sterile,
monotone,
and boring, monotone, and it's going to be sort of like what is in your mind. But if your clients give you a crazy eccentric piece from Aunt Gertrude, or you find a really quirky piece off of First Dibs, that throws a whole new edge into the thing and unexpected, which is really important.
It is. Actually, I think sometimes too, even mixing really expensive artwork with weird, funky, inexpensive garage sale type stuff.
Absolutely. It's called high-low. So what I sometimes do is I like taking really expensive, valuable pieces. Like say someone has their Lalique vase,
Yeah,
which is like
yeah,
my eyes roll over. Okay, Lalique. But
right.
I'll use it for a very pedestrian, ordinary thing. Like maybe it's a pencil jar, or it's a just something you do something very on a daily basis with. And then I'll take
Yeah,
something ordinary object, like there are vases I've gotten from CB2, and I'll elevate that, put that on a pedestal, just because it's
yeah,
beautiful design. And
yeah.
so I like mixing, being more humble about the very expensive things, and then being a little more proud of just beautiful, soulful
Yeah.
things.
And sometimes it gives it a richer feel too, I think.
It's also,
A less contrived feel.
you know what, I call it creating confidence, because a confident person will, the billionaire in the room is wearing jeans and a t-shirt, while the person
Yeah.
impeccably dressed is usually probably working, it is a shop person,
Yeah.
is trying hard. And I
Yeah.
like creating, I don't want nouveau riche, atmosphere. I don't want something that's nouveau riche. I want it to look curated, like you had it over time, and you're confident.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I sort of repeat to a lot of people, you know.
I think that's so the listing that you fully designed 3157 Steiner that's on the market
Yes.
now in Cal Hollow, incredible home. I think the best value in the city right now for 4,400 square feet. But what's great about that house is it looks like it was done yesterday. And it's a few years, you did it several years ago, but it really is totally timeless design. And I think will look just as good in 10 years.
Thank you. And it has a narrative. It appeals to people of all ages, which I think is really interesting. Men, women, young, old. Everybody responds to it exactly the same way. They love it.
Yeah,
It's fun. They also feel it's also not off-putting. You feel relaxed and chill there. I know
you
some
do.
people who say it's their favorite place.
It just feels, again, not frilly or too fancy or, it's
Neither too
relaxing.
masculine or feminine.
Yes,
It's
it's
a nice
neither. It's
mix.
very neutral. Yeah, and you did a
Well, you
great
know what?
job
Thank you.
integrating the de Gournay wallpaper, which is
Oh,
really cool.
I love Gournay. That was I
Yeah,
was thrilled. I think that was my first time I was able to use their paper.
yeah, it was great. And then there's a room where you stuck like a sunburst mirror on the ceiling. It's kind of the
Yes.
centerpiece, which is really cool.
Well, I also do a lot of sort of, I call it rich man, poor man design, where you integrate, and every room has to have one thing that's expensive, but it can have a lot of things that are, inexpensive. And that
Yeah,
was certainly an inexpensive thing of just finding a mirror and screwing it
yeah.
up in the ceiling and making it feel like a tent, a very special place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It feels that way. That's awesome. And that's a great example of taking, I mean, that was, the in-law apartment and really making it like a little gem.
Yes. And what's interesting is um, the client we had dinner a couple weeks ago, and he said that because that in-law space we decorated so nicely, they have been able to maximize the income that they've been receiving off of rentals on that.
Yeah,
And I don't know, but the last couple of years, we have done a lot of architecture, a lot of renovations, and the number of houses that we have designed and fixed the architecture, did all the designs that have then gone on the market, there's a huge premium for that.
yeah,
Because if you think about it, your money can go into smart design or bad design. The exact same budget can give you an
yeah,
amazing house that people want to buy. We had a project in Healdsburg. We took a ranch style house, turned
yeah,
it into a house you would not even recognize. I make a joke that it's so unrecognizable that it was like bigger than Kate Jenner that year, in terms of
yeah,
big change.
yeah.
Well, they got $1 million premium because of the design of
Because
what
it
they
stood
did.
out.
Because it
Yeah,
stood out, and their renovation wasn't much, like $500,000 to
yeah,
change a ranch house into something you can't even recognize.
yeah,
So I think people need to be strategic and smart with their design money, regardless of how much you have. Because even wealthy people have budgets.
yeah,
And look at San Francisco. San Francisco, you need to be smart about your investment because markets change, environment changes, and it's good to be prepared.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point too, is, even if you have a small space, you could design a one bedroom could be stunning. Doesn't have to be a
Absolutely.
big house. And there's
Absolutely.
ways to do great design and not, as you said, you don't need to necessarily spend a lot of money.
You do not need to spend a lot of money. A few smart things and curate it well. Make it
Yeah.
soulful. It should reflect you.
Yes.
I love going to someone's house and I'll
Yeah.
say, this is not my design style, but I love this person. I love
Yeah.
what they've done, regardless.
I like as well when you go into a house, and I think like you just said, if you go, I've been into some people's houses, and that this is not really a reflection of them. They
No.
hired a designer. The designer just did everything. But
Yeah.
I think a great designer like you incorporate your aesthetic, but also with reflecting their personality, and
You have
and
to.
yeah,
It's I'm part therapist. As soon as I meet someone, I sort of have to gauge that person and
yeah,
get a sense of what makes them happy. What do they want to project? What's their dream? What do they want to achieve? And I don't listen to the words, I listen to meaning, because people sometimes can't communicate what they really want. They may say,
very
I
true.
want this, but what they really want is something else. And so I usually
Yeah,
sort of ask a lot of questions and do a little
yeah, that's
analysis.
smart. Trying to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of it. But it's amazing how those kind of extra little funky trinkets that you collect over time and put places like really adds a lot of texture and depth.
Oh, I call it soul. These are the memories of your life. I would say the pieces in my house that are my most favorite pieces are things from the Alameda Flea Market or
Yeah,
the Pouce in Paris, got for $90, nothing, and
yeah,
they're my favorite pieces. You know.
yeah. Yeah, I love the Paris flea market.
Uh,
Great spot.
one day we will travel again. That.
Yes.
This lockdown has been totally fine for me. I've actually really enjoyed just being creative and not having to go to parties, not having to
Right.
socialize as much. Maybe when you socialize, you're having dinner with four people, two people. And to be honest, I was sort of on that movement anyway the last couple of years,
Yeah.
realizing I don't want lots of people. I'd
Yeah.
rather have just someone over for dinner for cocktails. Um, but traveling is the one thing, because I'm on the travel committee for the Institute of Classical Architecture,
Oh, yeah.
and we've had to cancel all of this year's plans. Next
Mm,
year is we'll see, but I usually take about 4 or 5 trips a year,
yeah.
and for me, travel is inspiration. In fact, I tell everyone,
Yeah.
especially designers, travel. That's the best.
Yeah. I think travel.
People, I
I
think
agree.
regardless, everyone has to travel.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think you're right. So do you find that maybe the shelter in place starting in March and everything has been kind of reinvigorating for the creative process?
Completely. I think what it's done, and I think this is globally. When has
Yeah.
4 billion people or 6 billion people around the world gone through? Everybody's gone through the exact same thing. We're forced to
Amazing.
reevaluate our values, our relationships. There are things that we thought we could never live without, that we had to do certain things, and we realize we don't need those things. Um, so I actually think that obviously a lot of bad has come from it, but I think people should also try to gather as much good as possible. You got to be
Yeah.
positive and say, okay, what am I going to do to make myself better, or my
Yeah. No,
life better
absolutely.
out of this?
Yeah, and I think I think certainly for the environment, hopefully, it's
Trees are back, birds are back.
right, yeah. And in the Bay Area, it's a bit funky now, but
Well, it's not actually. Today's pretty bright and sunny. Yeah, 2 days ago was so
tough in
creepy.
the city here. But yeah,
Oh my
the
God,
fires,
the orange. I mean, it was just crazy, cray
unbelievable.
cray. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So, who is your if you had to choose a designer or person who kind of is somewhat of a muse to you? They could be alive or not alive. They could be in the past or present. Who would you say is your biggest influence? Who's the biggest influence on you, and how did you get into design? Was it something you fell into, or
I,
something you knew you wanted to do?
design was completely accidental. I was in business. I was in finance. I went on a trip to Italy, stayed with a friend in a Palladian villa. He was turning 40, and we rented it for a week and met a designer, told her I was bored, she said, "Why don't you come, intern in our office 1 day a week?" I
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much. I showed up every day. I was a natural. In terms of design impact, I would say me going on that trip, meeting someone completely accidentally.
Mhm.
I had no intention of doing this as my career, and
Yeah.
I love it. In fact, I've been in the Wall Street Journal, even though I was in business. I've been in the journal because I'm a decorator, and not because of business. So that tells you something.
Yeah. How
Um,
funny.
John, in terms of inspiration, John Saladino is an amazing designer who appreciates old and new and thinks about functionality and texture and just has a deft hand with how he designs. And
Yeah.
I've loved him and his architecture and everything he does.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. And so in term project wise, what's your favorite project that you've done? It could be anywhere, obviously.
I will say, Corins on Steiner, I have to
On
say,
Steiner. Yeah.
is my favorite because I was able to have as much free reign as possible. So I was able to really complete, because you always think in your projects, oh, if I had all my choice, what would it
Yeah.
be? And sometimes you don't want, like when you're a great successful first director and you get your second
Hmm.
movie and they give you a big budget and it's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
So it could easily be like that. But in this case, allowed me everything I wanted. And I loved it. I love it to this day. It's great. The other great projects I would say are
And,
projects that
and
were,
just unless people, in case people want to look it up, it's 3157 Steiner Street.
and the other great projects would be just a really small client where we had to buy everything from overstock.com. I mean, it
Yeah.
just and yet we made it really kind of chic and fun for them, but
Yeah.
also they were really happy. There's something about gratitude. There's something
Yeah.
about a client who really appreciates we've changed their life. That makes me happy. I got an
Yeah.
email from a client. Was kind of forcing her or encouraging her to put a little game table in her living room. She didn't understand, why do I need that? The week it showed up, she was probably 40. Her father from Germany was visiting, and she
Hmm.
sent me a picture of her and her father playing chess at that table. And she said, I have not played chess with my father in 30 years, and it brought back wonderful memories. And thank you
That's so
so
cool.
much. And
Yeah.
started weeping on that. I was like, that was a good. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're right. I think it's amazing, it's amazing to me that more people don't. I mean, you spend so much time in your house or apartment. It's definitely worth investing in design. And design, I think, could mean even, collecting books or
Whatever
photographs.
makes you happy.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what gets me are there are people out there, they will spend a lot of money on clothes and cars.
Yeah.
And then the home, which is for me, the home is your stage, for your family, for you, your friends. They'll spend nothing or not. I wouldn't even let say spend. They won't spend any attention or make it a beautiful space.
Yeah.
And that always surprises me. Um, that you I would A home is a stage for your life. And I think
Yeah.
it reinforces,
An inspiration for your life as well, I think.
or there are parents who have young toddlers and they say, "Oh, we can keep it in a
Right.
Pottery Barn stage
Yeah.
until they grow up." And I said, "No, that's the totally wrong thing. When you've got
Totally.
a cheap place, your kids know that this is cheap and they can do whatever they want to it. But if you raise them with beautiful things, they
Yes.
will treat it with respect. You don't have to tell them. They will treat it
Yes.
with respect,
You'll
and
know.
they'll develop, and it'll develop their taste, because otherwise they're going to go off to
Yes.
college. They have no taste, no experience. So
Yeah.
it's, I feel
It's
sorry for their
true.
partner who has to deal with that.
No, that's totally true, though. I think you're right. They may have a little damage here and there, but on the whole, I think, kids know they're not
Kids are
stupid.
smart. They're
Yeah,
smart.
absolutely. You may not want to get a cat right away, a little kitten, though.
No, the cat, oh my God. I did have some really sweet clients, and I walked into their house and they had three cat towers everywhere. And I had, it was a tricky proposition, but I managed to
Yeah. I mean, what do you
to
do if you
trade
have
those out.
cats? Because they want to scratch everything.
Uh, they scratching wasn't an issue for them. It's a case by case basis. It's a case by
Yeah.
case basis.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't get leather. Maybe you don't get chenille. There's certain things.
Right.
Everyone is different, and you got to figure it out. That's
Yeah.
what makes it fun.
And so where's your favorite place to travel? Because you said travel is such a big influence.
I would say urban places. eh, I'd say Europe. I'd say Cuba, Havana.
Oh yeah, I've been there. It's
Texture.
great.
I just that texture. I'm crazy about texture. Morocco for how
Hmm.
otherworldly. I mean, their love of texture, beauty, tiles,
Yeah.
fabrics are crazy good.
Or the
Um,
YSL Museum there and the Berber Museum are incredible.
oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Majorel, and just the smell and the sounds of everything. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
Morocco is their attention to silverware and detail,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It's interesting too. I think when you go to someone's house and like, I think people also don't necessarily, good design is not just like the sofa or the coffee table or the rug. It's also the glassware and the table setting. And, I went to someone's house and they had,
Yeah,
kind of a mix of all different types of like glassware that were some were from the 20s, some were from the 19th century. I just think that's so cool. That's such a cool element.
I love it, especially if you get that quirky element. We
Yeah.
did sometimes like somebody will have like a pair of glassware that's so like Victorian and little like you'd say, oh, I don't want that. But I'll set that on a table with modern plates or a modern water glass. And
Hmm.
suddenly you appreciate. That's why I like mixing old and new. The
Yeah.
old gives gravitas to the new, and the new makes you re look at an old thing with fresh eyes. Because if you have a room full of old things, your eyes glaze over. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is old. It all comes with baggage. But if you got something, you could have actually a Victorian sofa, and I hate Victorian furniture. But if you
Yeah.
had that one Victorian piece in a warehouse, in a loft, with modern furniture, that's that one crazy piece.
Yeah.
You know what?
It kind
Put
of
a nice
works.
piece of fabric. It kind of works, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You could have like, even like a modern place and stick like a belter, American belter
Right.
1880s couch.
Usually, every client, I'll walk through their house and there'll be one object that they hate, that they don't like. And I'll look at it and I'll say, you know what? Why don't we move it from here to there? Because objects have power. And if you don't place it in the right location, it has no
Hmm.
power. You don't, but if you move it, it's amazing how when you move it to the right place, suddenly it's like, wow, this is a wonderful place. So I
And how do you know?
prefer sort of,
Yeah. How do you know where the right place is?
it's a half you
Yeah.
feel it in my sense, and the other halfway is you test it out.
Yeah.
You know,
Test it out.
I'm pretty good with eyeballing in my mind of like, okay, I can visually place things in my mind, but you've got to be humble and say, you know what, there are times when I go, oh, that will never work there, and I've learned, oh my God, it did work there. So I have one thing
Mm.
you kind of learn into becoming a better professional is humility,
Yeah.
that you don't always know. You know enough, but you don't know everything, and you have to
Yeah.
sort of be open to the unexpected, to things outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what do you think with San Francisco in relation to other places? Do you think like what would you call the how do you think it differs here, the interior design requests versus when you do a project on the East Coast?
It's not as showy. It's not as sort of like trying to impress people, which is both good and bad. Because on one hand, it's kind of fun to sort of like
Yeah.
want to show off and have a good fun event thing. The other thing is it's free of a lot of rules, which is great. The East Coast, you know, things can be
Yeah.
so very East Coasty, very
Right.
traditional, which I love. I mean, I'm a classicist,
Yeah.
but I don't want to have to do that every single time.
Yeah.
So the California vibe has a great, and tech has really sort of invigorated and has its own, perspective.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting where things, we're at an inflection point. It'll be interesting where we move off to in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Um,
totally.
But
And,
life continues, you know?
and I do think actually, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen like across the country, there's a little bit of a move from this cold, stark, modern, that you're used to seeing in the last few years in
Yes,
Los Angeles in particular, to
yes.
moving to this more like warm, homey, cozy.
Well, I would say even a modernist, they realize that having nothing but cold, smooth surfaces is really cool. But what they'll want is we'll use materials that have a lot of texture, a lot of age,
Yeah,
so that it feels artisanal. It feels artisanal, but still modern. So you're giving them texture. I think so. A modernist they're starting to move towards more texture, which
yeah,
is
more texture,
great,
more.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. That makes
Right.
that makes a
And
lot of sense.
history, because, you know, modernism, you know, you've got the modernism that starts in the 19th century, you know, early part of the 20th century, you know, and you mix that in things. What I don't want for any of my projects is someone to walk in and say, "Oh, you bought this all." I think that's terrible. Like, who? Like, that sounds very, very flat.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. And so, what's your favorite neighborhood in San Francisco,
Um,
architecture-wise?
oh, architecture, you know, I say Pack Heights, you know,
Yeah,
just
I guess it's hard to
walking
beat that.
through all the, I mean, I like house porn, okay?
Yeah,
I walk through and they did a good job. But what's funny is I'll look at old houses and I'll say, you know what? I'll bet when that was done, it was considered sort of tacky because maybe
yeah,
it's over the top. But there's something about it that now we like. And I always think about the houses and neighborhoods of, like, you know, and
yeah,
I like neighborhoods. You know, like, so the reason I'm like, I use the word suburban as like a four-letter word. Like, I'll
yeah,
say, don't order that. That's a very suburban thing, because
yeah.
I don't like suburban aesthetic. Although I'll have to say, I like the ease of driving, ease of parking, and
Right.
now
Yeah,
the ease of, COVID protection. But I like walkable urban neighborhoods. I grew up in a great neighborhood in Oakland, um, uh, Lakeshore Longridge Road that leads up to
yeah.
Piedmont.
Oh, it's
It had
great
been
over there.
developed in the 19th, it developed in the 1930s. Wasn't considered wealthy, but it's a beautiful neighborhood with each house looking different, even though they were all built at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. I love those
yeah,
30s houses too.
it's the best time. I mean, architecture,
I think
those
so
neighborhoods
too.
are the best. The scale is right. They feel right.
Mhm.
They don't seem like developments.
Yeah, I think also you can kind of do your own aesthetic within them. Like you said, the rooms
Completely.
are, you could do modern, you could do like anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
What type of
Um,
house do you live in?
it's a 1930s actually, on the top of Buena Vista in Buena Vista
Yeah.
Heights. Yeah.
What's amazing is my house, my weekend house up here, was actually a 1980s, part of an 80s build.
Victorian. Yeah. Oh, 1980s.
No, just
Yeah.
1980s. No, no,
Yeah.
no. It had no personality,
Yeah.
no soul, no architecture at all. It had good bones on the outside. And so, I, what I like doing is taking a dog, or something that has no soul, and adding
Yeah.
texture, adding, a sense, texture
Adding
and soul
warmth
to
and
it.
design. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the great thing with design. You can totally do that. Transform it.
Completely. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be expensive,
No, it
you
doesn't.
know.
Where is your we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit, but
Yeah.
what's your favorite museum? Anywhere.
Oh,
Not
oh,
anywhere in the world.
sure. The Sir John Soane Museum
Oh
in
yeah, I
London.
love that one.
It's a
That
house museum.
yeah.
It's great. No one had even heard of it, 20 years
Mhm.
ago, and it came out of the blue. And it's
In
just,
London,
Sir
yeah.
John Soane was an amazing architect, English architect, and it's his house, and it's tests design ideas and his collection. It's over the top.
The funny thing with that answer is that I've asked this question like maybe four times to different
Yeah.
guests, and three out of the four times has been the John Soanes Museum in London.
we I've
It is
actually
such
been
a
fortunate,
special place.
isn't it? I've been fortunate to have a candlelight dinner there. Last time I was in
Yes,
London
very
two
cool.
years ago, and then I had met the director of it, the museum director, in Newport at a symposium like 20, 15 years
Yeah.
ago, and we became friends. Well, now he's the director of the Queen's collection, and I said,
Oh, very
Tim,
nice.
what? So he's responsible for all her art collection, furniture,
That's
everything.
amazing. That's not a bad gig.
That's not a bad gig at all. I said, I
No.
want
Yeah.
some free tea towels and a skip the queue line, mister.
Yeah, exactly. I went
Oh,
to a candlelight tour at the John Soames. They'll sometimes have that, which is pretty awesome.
yes, yes.
Yeah. I also love the Wallace collection there.
The Wallace is great, dense,
Yeah.
especially if you like armor.
Yeah.
I go with my straight friends. They go, oh, armor. They like that.
Yeah.
We
But
don't,
yeah, I did see the Charles II exhibit at the Queen's Gallery actually a couple years
yeah.
ago. That was pretty great.
Also, okay, all museums, you'd be surprised how many wonderful museums, like Baltimore's great museums, you just have to explore,
Yeah.
because there's a
They don't have to
museums you
necessarily
think,
be the big
oh,
one.
it's not nothing. And then there's all you need is one thing to inspire you.
Yeah, totally.
know.
Yeah, no,
It's inspiration.
totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, favorite restaurant in San Francisco?
Oh, well, I'd say Zuni. Oh, no,
Yeah.
okay, I have two. No, I have two. Zuni for that, and then Original Joe's on the other end, just
Oh,
because
great.
it's
Oh, that's awesome.
old school Italian,
Red sauce,
white
yeah.
tablecloth, men taking care of your drinks. That's a
Yeah.
good. Both are good evenings.
Yes, for sure. And the chicken at Zuni. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, Justin,
this
this
was
has
super
been great.
interesting. For sure. And for all those listening, Benjamin Dong really is an incredible designer. And if you do want more information about 3157 Steiner, it's one of his masterpieces. So
Thank you.
incredible property. Thank you again. Stay safe. I know you're up
Stay
in
safe.
Sonoma right now.
Yeah.
The fire.
Bye, Justin.
All right. Thanks, Benjamin.